What is up, everybody? Joe Everest, the fence expert. We're out here at the 2023 Fence Show and Security Expo. Ran into a face that if you're in fencing and you follow fencing content, you know exactly who I'm talking to right now. Mark Olson, SWI, also SuccessfulContractor. Two channels they can follow you on.
Yep, right.
So if you guys like watching fence-related content and you haven't watched Mark, which is probably two people out there, I'd say, you ought to check him out. We talked about having a conversation, sitting down, and talking about a topic that comes up a lot, but doesn't really make it onto social media, I guess. So we wanted to sit down and chat about basically why fence contractors, probably contractors in general, should make an effort to attend conventions.
Yeah, why in the world would somebody come to these? Why would you put all the time and effort and money into coming to these, or coming to these and bringing your people, I guess?
Yeah, it's because it's an investment. Right? So stay tuned for that conversation.
So this is one of the, we actually have a line item on our P&L for trade shows.
Okay.
Like trade show travel.
Yeah.
That we use because it's important enough for us to come to these things. And it's not just this one. We do this, and this is the first year for the FWA's Fence Show here in Vegas, but we'll be at Nashville for the Fence Tech, which has been going on for as long as I've been a fence contractor. Yep. And I think it's important for people, and the thing we get out of all these is like, why would I join an association?
Yeah, and I talked to, so in our local home show, I saw we had just gotten back from Fence Tech in OKC, and I was just talking about that, and now they're a larger company. They're a big established fence company. He said, well, I just don't understand. You know, I go every 3 or 4 years, but I don't understand why some of you people go every year. And you take people with you? I go by myself. And I think that's a thought in the industry. Now, it might be left over, right? So from my dad's kind of generation, my dad had the same mentality that he would go every few years, thinking that there's not a lot of innovation that happens in construction in general. So that might be a holdover thought of not attending all the time. And he would always just go by himself and not take his team.
So what would you say to that person that says, what would be your response to that person that says, I can only really get something every couple of years and there's no new innovation, and my team doesn't need to be there for that? Yeah,
so I think the biggest point to talk about is going to be technology, right? So just think about who you saw at Fence Tech OKC, which was a handful of months ago, versus who is here. And as far as whether it's CRMs or whomever, I think the technology has changed in just a handful of months since we were there to now we're here. And so the second part of that is, well, can't you find all that on in the internet? Right? Can't you Google this? Can't you find that? And you can, but you aren't able to have a one-on-one conversation with someone real time, have them show you the features and maybe explain a few things about whatever it is you're talking to. And not just technology. You and I were just looking at a tool where I could put it in my hand. I could see the difference between what he was, the claims he was making. I could feel them in real time, rather than maybe watching a video and hoping that the video was accurate.
Yeah. So for me, I think that the people that say there's just nothing new, I only need to go every 3 or 4 years because there's nothing new, there might not be a whole lot new, and you might not be surprised by it, or it may not apply to you and whatever trade show you're going to. But the part for me that we don't talk about enough is the connection to the people. I necessarily do not come for the products so much as I come to just be with people that are charged up about the industry that I'm in.
Yep, absolutely.
It's being able to hang out with people like you, and when we can talk about all the issues or things that are current in that day, and maybe, hey, what are you doing in this situation? Labor is really tough right now, or my prices are going through the roof with materials, and having those conversations with people and saying, what are you doing to combat this and get better ideas? It's the show in there. That's secondary to the reason that I'm here.
Yeah, there's a lot more value that comes outside of the show floor, whether it's in also the educational. And so you've already had 2 educational seminars so far. So it's also the educational seminars outside the show floor. But you're right in that it's the dinners, it's the after hours, whether it's activities or whatnot, or just having dinner and drinks downstairs sort of thing. It's the connections that we make here that we can then take back to our businesses.
And that, I think, leads into the next part is why would we want to rob our team of that? Right. And our team, well, we may not be impressed by some of the stuff. You bring a new team member to something like this, and they're like, salesperson, for example, sure. I had no idea that product existed. And you're like, well, it's been around for 4 years. But they don't have a way of getting your knowledge into their heads. So this is a good way to get them up to speed so that they're like, hey, wow, that was amazing. I saw stuff that I didn't even know existed. And the next time that problem comes up, I have a solution.
That's right.
I know exactly where to get that.
Yeah, and maybe there is a problem that just hasn't been brought to your attention yet, that whatever this team member, whoever they are, they're going through, that they see a tool that solves it. And they say, hey, this could save X amount of time when we're handling a project of this nature. We should really take a look at this. Whereas I would have walked right past it, not even thinking that we even need to entertain that piece of equipment.
Yeah, sometimes it's two people can go to the same show and have two different experiences. Like my brother will come with me to some of this stuff and he'll be like, did you see that booth? I'm like, no, I went right by it. Yeah, it wasn't. They didn't have orange, so I didn't notice it.
Well, that's true. There is a booth in there that is very orange. And I have made the statement that if I were allowed to give out awards, best colored booth. Nothing against your guys' booth, but best colored booth.
Hey, we're second orange.
Yeah.
I know, but yeah, Easy Grout's got it going on over there with all that beautiful orange.
I'll say this too. So we talked about coming every year versus every several years. Using this tool example that you and I were looking at, those guys have been at several shows, right, that I've been at. They were at FinTech this year, FinTech last year. But for whatever reason, right now, our business is in the place where that tool makes sense.
It's the first time that tool mattered.
Right.
It's like I knew about it the whole time, but this is the first time I knew about it and actually needed it.
That's right.
So now it's imprinted.
Yeah, and if I were to not, I just went to FinTech. So if I had decided, hey, I'm not going to go to a Fin show for the next 3 years because nothing innovates, it possibly could be another 3 years before I put that tool in my team's hands. What kind of efficiencies are we going to lose? And, what larger problems come up because I didn't solve the smaller problem?
Mm-hmm. And we never know when innovation is going to come about. I think the biggest discussion that's happening now in our industry is this whole driven versus dug.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're having that whole discussion. And I made the claim on another interview I did that you wait in 10 years, you come back in 10 years and you're going to see that 50% of the fences are going to be put in digless with driven methods, not dug methods.
I think 50% might be low, Mark. And just when you're talking to contractors, that I talked to a sizable contractor up in Minnesota, all they do is driven, period. And I mean, you guys drive both. And is it all within reason? Yeah.
No. In Florida, that is all we do.
So I'm hearing more contractors like yourself that say it's 100% driven. I think 50% might be low, especially if we're talking about 10 years.
Yeah, so you don't know when those conversations are happening and when trends are going to change. And if you wait 3 years, you might be behind the curve. And then all of a sudden your customers are asking for something that you don't even know about.
Well, and in business, we're all looking for competitive advantages, right? We're trying to find the unique selling proposition, or we're trying to find something that makes us more affordable, that gives us an edge over local competition. This room is where a lot of those are hiding. Right, and you may not notice it in year one. You might walk right past it. Now, to your point, if you have a team member that also has eyes open looking for this, they might find it. But I think it's important to attend these as often as you can. This is the second show in the same year that we've been to that's fencing related, and I found new things here that I hadn't seen there. And the vendors were at both.
So you called this show an investment. If you come to something like this, it's an investment. Now, an investment is something, people throw that word around a lot. Like you got the 18-year-old kid that's like, I invested in a set of 20-inch rims for my 1994 F-150. It's not really an investment. It has to return dividends.
Yeah, it has no return.
That money is spent and is never coming back to you. Yeah. But by saying the word investment, you're basically leading to the fact that you think that that's going to pay you dividends later on.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, and there's some things that are easy to put a number on, right? So finding this thing led to this efficiency that saved us X amount of dollars. That's a solid return that I can point to on paper. To your point earlier, there's a lot of returns that you can't put a number on. Is a conversation. So last night we had dinner, then we sat down for drinks, and we had a conversation that I never would have had with these individuals online, right? But because we were at the same, we were at the same restaurant that led to a lounge that we felt comfortable enough to have the conversation, that conversation and those connections will absolutely lead to returns. Can't put a number on it though. So that's going to be the kind of the tricky thing. But I absolutely view this as an investment rather than an expense. The rims might be an expense, not an investment. But it's an investment through and through because, and whether it's you or your team members or whomever, absolutely the connections that are made, the knowledge that's gained in the educational seminars, it returns many, many times over.
And I have yet to bring a team member to one of these events and have them not get charged up. And when we bring the people kind of as a reward, so it's like it's a benefit for that team. Like, hey, you're just doing a real great job. I just want you to take a week and come to this event that's in relation to our industry, whether it be concrete, they've got the concrete shows and stuff like that, and really get fired up about it. And then they return home and they're like, man, I learned so much. I feel like I can use this. And they're fired up because they feel like you value them and you valued them enough to allow them to get this education, have that opportunity, network with those fellow contractors.
Absolutely.
And the returns, it's hard to put a number on it, but they're there.
That's the thing. Yeah. So you have both firm and kind of non-firm return numbers, right? And it's easy to gauge efficiencies, but I think the more important return is those kind of non-tangible returns in that, your team member meets someone else's team member, and now they have a resource, right? They have someone that they can reach out to based on a conversation they had here or whichever conference that you're at. I think those intangibles I would argue that they are more important than the tangible efficiencies and this and that.
Yeah, there's been a number of times when I just meet people, and so the next time I have a question, they're in a different area and they feel free and open to talk to me.
Yes.
Or the people in my local area, if I called them up, are like, I can't talk to you because I'm not going to help you out. But somebody, a couple states away is like, heck yeah, I ran into that problem and now I got you. That networking, man, how do you put a price on that networking? Because I know that's made me money over the years.
Yeah.
I know that's made me money.
Well, just the connections and the second and third tier connections, right? So you making a connection here and then expressing, hey, I'm having problems sourcing this thing. Hey, you know where to source this? I saw on social media you had a project like this. Where were you able to source that? And then they say, oh, well, let me introduce you to this gentleman who reps for that company. And so you may have never met that guy had the first connection not been made. The second and third tier networking is absolutely just as valuable.
I just did that. So Elijah Steiner from OKC Fence.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm working with these guys that do high security stuff and they're into kind of cable barriers. And I'm like, that sounds exactly like what I like to do.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, come over here. Let me introduce you to these guys because I'm working with them. They're great. And now we're going to be talking, and if they have projects, and that could lead to millions of dollars of sales for us.
And so and I think this is a great point. That could have been done via email, right? If this event hadn't happened, maybe you talk to Elijah, maybe he sends an email and CCs you both on it with like a digital introduction, but the value's not there.
Face to face is so much better
because it's not relationship driven the digital way, right? Your relationships are made here, the face to face. Let's talk about this. I think there's more value. I think those bonds are stronger than the email introductions and that sort of thing.
You get to know your suppliers better too. It just builds better relationships because, we buy products, but we're buying products and services from people, and we have to trust and know those people to become more comfortable. And the more we can do that, just like when we're selling our products to our consumers, the more comfortable they are with us, the easier it is to sell to them, and the more our manufacturers have access to us and access to our input, the better they'll be for us, and it's relationship driven. So
absolutely. So we tell people when we're trying to talk to people about selling, it's that people don't want to be sold, they want to buy. Like our consumers don't want to be sold something, they want to make the purchasing decisions and buy, and there's a really big difference. But the thing to understand is it also goes the other way. It goes between us and our vendors too. And it's not just the buy-sell side too. It's the relationship so that maybe there are favors that can be asked, or they just learn more about your business in a one-on-one setting than, through an email or even through an office introduction. I have better conversations in these events with my sales reps than I do when they stop by the office, because here I can dedicate time to have that conversation. Or a lot of times, when they stop by the office, I'm in the middle of 5 different things and everyone needs my attention, so I can give them the bare minimum. But here you can actually have dedicated conversations.
Yeah, and there's things that we, like, especially as owners, there's things that we can't discuss with our team. Maybe we don't want to, but we can find those people here to have conversations that are maybe difficult and, we can't have with our team at home to solve a problem or whatever. So I just love it. I love to be able to connect with those new people, and it seems like I'm meeting new people all the time. And we need to decompress as well. That's basically where I was going with that whole thing. So my thought is that as much as everybody else charges up, sometimes we need to get away and we need to get recharged as well, because we're like, man, it's just been the same old crap for the last 6 months. My bucket's overflowing. I'm tired of this. And so sometimes getting out of it and going to do something else, it gets you charged up about the industry in general and what you're doing is good.
And it's related to what we enjoy doing. Right. So obviously we're in the fencing industry. We enjoy running fencing businesses. So I just got done with a vacation, took the family on vacation. We spent a week at the beach and we had a great time. I don't want to minimize that. But I was always thinking about work, right? Because you're always kind of in that, you never really truly unplug sort of thing. This is kind of a different feeling in that I get to relax while still staying plugged in. Right. So we're still having fencing related conversations. I still feel like I'm in the middle of doing something I really enjoy. It's a different type of, it's not really even unwinding, and it's not really relaxing, I don't think. It's just being able to kind of let your guard down and hang out with other people that really get you.
It's different than the norm.
Yeah. Well, and I think the point there too is it's people that get you, right? So you can have conversations with people that you can't have with people on vacation, right?
Yeah, my wife, I really don't understand this, but maybe you can understand. Maybe you can help me. But when we go on vacation, she doesn't really want to talk about fencing. I don't get it myself.
No.
Like, I see beautiful fences all around me, and so I want to talk about it, and I want to mention it.
Yes.
And she's just not appreciative of that. But I can come here, and I feel like I can be the true me.
Right.
I can be me. I don't feel like I have to hide who I am around people like you.
Yeah, you can let your fence flag fly.
And loud and proud, buddy.
But I think that is one of the benefits here, is being around industry peers, right? And around people that really understand how you think and why you think that way. And really, it's a group of people that are interested in the same thing that you're interested in.
So what would you tell all these people that are sitting at home still watching this thinking, I can't afford it, or I just don't have the time, or I just don't see the value still? What would you tell those people?
So the easy answer that you hear people say, and that you hear it so much as cliches, like, well, you can't afford not to, right? But I think to expand on that, you got to make that first trip. I think once you make the first trip and see what it is, I don't know. I think there's misunderstandings on what it is, not good, bad, or indifferent, but just it's hard to understand what this is and what's going on here without being here and without having these conversations and meeting these people. I think the first time you come, you absolutely understand what it is and you get plugged in, and that's when the journey begins.
Yeah, and don't sit in the corner. Definitely meet people, and that's tough. It's for people like me. Like, I'm not naturally, you people watching this might think otherwise, but I'm not naturally somebody that wants to go out there and be thrown into a new environment with random people. I don't love that at all when I'm familiar and comfortable with people. So, but don't, it's like a middle school dance. Don't sit on the wall.
Yeah.
Like, get out there and dance. If you're gonna come to the dance, dance.
So I think that's probably a good thing to talk about too, is you get out of it what you put into it, right? So maybe someone has had a bad experience and they shared that with someone else, and the person that hears that doesn't really get the full story, right? And the full story may have been that they walked the show floor for a few hours and they went back to the hotel and then they did all these other things. They didn't actually put themselves out there to make these connections and have these conversations.
Did you go to the classes that were offered? Did you learn something new? Did you learn for that? Look for that one thing that you were struggling and look for answers for it.
I talked to a guy that went to a fence show, went to a fence tech, and he was just said he just didn't understand the value in it, and he went to the show floor for a few hours, and then he basically did sightseeing after that.
Like, did you even go to the bar after?
Right.
Because if you didn't, you missed the other 3/4 of the show.
Well, or the welcome meal, or the dinners that happen afterwards, or the award ceremonies, or didn't do any of this.
But it's all, I'm not kidding you. When I say 3/4 of the show is not on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going and hanging out with people and having fun and catching a meal or a drink or whatever you're comfortable with. That's literally what there is to get charged up about.
Well, you get a couple thousand people from the same industry all in one building, there's going to be some spillover. You're going to see some people walking through the lobby, and it's organically, there's going to be incredibly valuable conversations going on that, because you're industry peers, you can walk up and get involved with that conversation, but you have to put yourself in the right place to have that conversation.
And those conversations are going all around us. It's not hard to get into one. You're with people that love to talk about the same thing.
Well, as we're sitting here, we can kind of hear, I don't know if you at home can hear, but there's conversations going on right outside these walls that could not have happened if whoever these individuals are had not attended this show today.
So that's what I have to say about trade shows and why you probably want to get involved in them. I guarantee you that every industry has a trade show or some sort of community associated with them that you could get involved in to do better yourself and help you elevate your business. And without their involvement, you'll probably stay stagnant. You need to be, what is that, iron sharpens iron, or steel sharpens steel?
Absolutely.
You need to go be around those people that have been where you're at and then taking it to the next level. You can't get sharper staying at home not learning from the people that have been there and done that.
Well, and there's something too about being in the room with people that have done what you're doing before, that have gone ahead of you and already seen that, right? So you got to put yourself in the room with people that are further along so that you can create those relationships. But the important thing is you got to be in the room. You got to put yourself in the place.
Did you get your, is this off Amazon?
It is.
That's where I got mine too.
What do you know?
My wife got it for me.
Same.
Yeah. See, look, we have that in common, and we fence.
And we wouldn't have seen that if we hadn't have been at this show.
Could have probably caught it on your YouTube channel. What channel is that now?
Probably, yeah. So you can search Joe Everest and find me pretty much anywhere.
The fence expert.
The fence expert.
Which kind of hurts a little bit because I like to think I'm smart about fence, but I'm not the fence. I'm just an expert, not the.
This is probably the one thing I hear the most is, oh, so you're the fence expert. Like there's one, like, okay, well, there are multitudes. The channel's been named. It just is what it is. But
and now I have something to give you a hard time about, so it's perfect. I love the channel name.
Good. That's what I love doing, is giving you something to like grind at me at. I love that so much.
Yeah, that's good that we have that. We're just SWI fence. I mean, we're not the anything. Dan. We have the Dan.
See, we don't have a Dan.
Yeah.
We don't have the Dan at all.
We have a couple Steves even.
This is a whole different video, but you were talking about, you're doing a class yesterday on YouTube, and one piece of advice I would give people is be careful when you name your channel, because this channel is me, and I love it, but I can't bring anyone else on, right? So like if there was someone else in our company, there are several guys that we did a week in the life show a while ago, and I found a couple guys in the company that loved being on. They did well, and they had good information to share. But the feedback was like, well, they're on the Joe Everest channel. Well, that's not Joe Everest. That's, somebody else. So that's not really pertinent to this video.
I thought about that when we named our company, and that somewhere out there, it's floating around in podcast land or something. It's going to be on there, but why we're SWI. You're going to have to go find that. That's going to be on the Dan Wheeler, like why we're called SWI, because there's a whole story and how I got to Florida. But we thought about that very hard when we crashed and burned as Olson Fencing. I didn't want to have a company that was our name, because then I have to try and sell it if I ever want to sell it again.
Yep.
I mean, it was pretty ambitious of me to think that I would have a company worth something right after a bankruptcy. So, I mean, I was always shooting for the stars.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, that's one of the Rockefeller principles, right? Those, you got to begin with the end in mind.
And then, so I didn't want that. I wanted something that was simple and easy. I didn't want it to be a company. And I didn't want to limit us to fencing. I'm like, what if we get into this thing and we all of a sudden we want to make pastries?
Yeah.
You know, we could be SWI Bakery, and it's just as easy. We just add bakery to the end of it. So we were pretty careful about it the second time we named the company, and I think that was probably a good choice.
There's a lot in the name. There's a lot in the name.
Not that I don't love my name, and not that I was embarrassed by my name.
Sure.
We could have just been Olson Fencing or Olson Fencing LLC instead of Inc. So,
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. There's a company in town that just puts a number 2 behind their name. So there's such and such 2. Well, first one didn't pan out, so the second one though, it's the one.
Well, I could just call this Mulligan Fence Company, because this is number 2.
It's a do-over. It's a do-over.
It's redo. I'm gonna hit that again. First time, ooh, in the trees. Well, do you have anything else to add or suggest to people?
I don't think so. I think the overarching theme here is you got to put yourself in the right place to succeed, right? Well, in all areas of business, but this area especially, because it's not only the education, it's not only meeting vendors you may not have met, seeing items you may never have seen before, keeping up on trends, but it's also making these connections, right? And whether it's on the show floor or it's after hours, you've got to put yourself in this situation to just take advantage of, everything that's happening around you. So guys, it's obvious that we love coming to trade shows, no matter where they are. This one happens to be in Vegas. The next one's Nashville in January. Back here, probably this time next year. If there's a trade show that revolves around our industry, there's about 100% chance you'll see us attending it. If you do see us, I love to meet you. Come on up and say hello. Always good to see a fellow fencer out in the wild. Let me know what you think about trade shows. Is there a trade show that you have been to that you haven't seen us at that you'd like to see us at? I always love interacting with you guys in the comments below. For now, I'm Joe Everest,
The Fence Expert.
the fence expert,
And I'm just Mark Olson with SWI.
and both of us are reminding you that good fences make good neighbors.